So today, what I'm going to be doing is going over some themes and techniques to help you prepare for the exam on Friday. And this is not just for this test, this is for basically every test we do this year. But I want to give you some pointers as you're preparing this week, because I know some people are really anxious about that, and I want to kind of help alleviate some of that stress. First thing I want to talk about are study themes in American history and history in general. There are some basic themes that are consistent across the board and patterns that you see come up in how we approach the study of history. First and foremost, we're looking for cause and effect. It's not enough to memorize a date or know an event. It's more important that you understand what are the elements that led to something and what happens as a result of it. Because we want you not thinking of things in isolation. We want you making connections between events. Who made something happen? How does it happen? Who supports a change? Who doesn't? Intended versus unintended consequences, things like that. Change in continuity is looking at how something might change over time, how views and attitudes might change over time, who benefits from a policy, who's hurt by a policy. Contextualization. You can't look at it in isolation. What else was going on when exploration happened? What were the other events going on? You think about all the other elements we've talked about this unit, and that's what you want to look at. Understand the period in which everything else is going on from the broadest possible perspective. Comparison, describe, analyze, evaluate are all looking at or all asking you to make judgment calls about different questions and things that we look at. So one of the things you might be asked to do is evaluate an argument. I may make a statement and you tell me, and I'll tell you to evaluate it. We'll do more of that a little bit later on, but that's one of the themes that we come up with. Through the eyes of others, often a very common theme is how other people experience things. And also using the past is this idea that we always look for relevance. So we're looking for historical events and how they have significance today. So that's another theme. And again, these are just some basic things to help you start to focus yourself as you look at the review sheet. Now, there's dozens and dozens of study techniques. I'm going to give you a couple of my favorites, and I'll explain why I do that. First and foremost, it's always better to study a little bit at a time. It's always better to study every night for a few minutes rather than kind of wait and kind of cram it all in. Reality is most of us don't do that, and so we're always stuck in this pattern of having not enough time to study everything we need to do. So that being said, this is a method that I think is really great. Get two color markers. Okay, you can use a third if you want, but I just go with two. You can call 3 pens, two, green or yellow. And I want the highlighters because you want to be able to read what's behind it. Now, it's important to understand why we do this. First of all, our brain does not like to feel like we're not in control, like we don't know what's going on. So, what will happen is when we go to study, inevitably we study that which we're comfortable already knowing, and we've got it down cold, and we skip over the things we don't know very well or are harder, we find more difficult to understand, more complex. So our brains will trick us and we study the easy stuff and leave the hard stuff later. Then when we run out of time, what do we run out of time on? The things we actually needed to focus on. So tonight, sit down with this review sheet and a green and a yellow marker. You can use whatever colors you want. The color doesn't matter, but just two specific colors and develop a pattern like this. So let's say I'm a student in my own class and I sit down with this review sheet and I start looking at it and I say, okay, 5 themes of geography. I got that. I know what that is. That's not hard. We did it in middle school. Boom, I got it cold. I'm going to mark that like it says here in green because I am so confident I know what it is. Globes and maps, pretty straightforward. I got that down, no problem. Wait a minute. Gerardus Merc, what the heck is that? I have no idea. Map projections, I think I know what she was talking about, but I'm not sure. Triple Winkle, I think I know what that is, but I'm not sure. And perception and perspective, yeah, I got that down, so I'm going to put a big green one there. And what I do then is I just go through the entire map. And what you're going to take it up to is today we finish the commercial revolution in 3G. So tonight you can do everything up to commercial revolution in 3Gs. And do that for the whole thing. So you're going through and you're like, okay, I know hemispheres, great. I know latitude, great. I'm still a little sketchy on longitude. I know the equator, fine. Um, Yeah, I'm not really sure on the difference between latitude and longitude. Prime meridian, I think I know, so I'm going to put that in yellow. Yeah, rotation, revolution, sure. Seasons, I got that down, no problem. Um, Time zones and tropics, I'm not really clear on. So by the time you're done, it's going to look all these different colors, right? So when you go back tomorrow to start studying, you study first the things that have no color at all, whatever that third pen is. So in this case, I just said leave it white, right? So in this case, I put 3 different colors on here. Okay. I put green, yellow, and white. So I'm going to start with Gerardus Mercator. I'm going to start with map details like longitude and the difference between latitude and longitude. And that's where I'm going to start in this first section. Then, after I figure like I've studied that and I've done that a little bit, then I'm going to move to the yellow items and move that. That way, if I run out of time, I'm running out of time on the information I feel most confident in. And it actually keeps us from, kind of just going crazy and studying these things over and over again. Another just basic question that you should be basic question or some basic questions you could be asking yourself always when you're rereading your notes. And again, rereading is not as active as handwriting. So I'm going to suggest to you handwriting your notes again or rewriting them is actually a much better method than just rereading them. Rereading them is passive learning. You need to do something more with your hand to engage and push yourself so that you can try to dig a little deeper. So what I would suggest is ask yourself these questions. How did this happen? Maybe even writing your notes. How did this happen? And then answer it. Why does this matter? Answer it. What happened as a result of this? Answer it. What led to it? What is the significance? Always pushing yourself to think. The idea is that we want to push you to go deeper, want to push you to go wider. And that's how you're always looking for those connections and that relationship, depth and breadth is what we're looking for here. Again, I'm a big believer in rewriting my notes as long as you don't just copy them verbatim and it becomes sort of like, karaoke, like you're just rewriting them, just word for word. If you're integrating notes you took in class, if you're doing some of that, that would be terrific. I also would suggest that when you handwrite, you don't write a single thing down from your notes unless you absolutely know what it means. Because that way, what you're going to be doing is it's going to force you to do it. So if you write something down and say you wrote down geocentric versus heliocentric, and you know what heliocentric is, but you're not really sure what geocentric is, then don't write it until you've looked it up. And that way, you're going to force yourself to do that. Okay, so that's my first recommendation. I'm going to make a second video that's going to talk about note card writing, which is my favorite of all methods.